Well, howdy from North Dakota. And I got something to show you in North Dakota. Going to show you something that you probably didn't know about Sitting Bull. And number two, the center of it all. Number three, there's some really big things alongside the highway that you didn't know existed. And if we have time, maybe a little bonus. So let's check it out in this episode of North Dakota. And our first stop in North Dakota is Fort Yates, North Dakota. It's on the western bank of the Missouri River, which is also called Lake Oahe because it's dammed up here. Which, by the way, Lake Oahe is the fourth largest lake in the United States. How about that? Anyway, so Fort Yates is also the home to the resting place of the Indian chief Sitting Bull. And if Sitting Bull rings a bell, he and Crazy Horse led that famous battle that defeated the American cavalry at Little Bighorn, just north of here. So anyway, Sitting Bull was a famous guy, led the Lakota people, fought for their rights, persevered in the battle at Little Bighorn, and then as a result, skedaddled up into what's now present-day Saskatchewan in Canada. After some years, about 5 years later, they came on back down this way and settled back down in the area here. And he continued fighting for Lakota's and Indian rights. And then his fame became a lot more, and he eventually joined Wild Bill Hickok on his Wild West tour. But he quit the tour, came back here into this area and settled down. And then eventually the Indian agency was getting worried that he was going to start another uprising. So they had orders to come and pick him up. They got into a fight, a gun battle, killed 7 of his guys, 6 of the Indian guys, and as well as Sitting Bull himself. And so then Sitting Bull was buried here in Fort Yates, where he was shot and killed. But wait, there's actually more to the story. Is he really buried here? For that, we got to go over to South Dakota, where we were earlier in the day. So let's go. But anyway, he died. He was buried in Fort Yates, and then now that Sitting Bull became this famous guy, the people in Mobridge, South Dakota, where Sitting Bull was born, actually wanted to honor him. And so what they did is they went up to Fort Yates and in the middle of the night dug up his bones and brought him here, buried him buried him in concrete and steel casings so that nobody can redig him back up. And now they say that Sitting Bull is buried right here on the river overlooking Mobridge, South Dakota, over on the east side of the Missouri River / Lake Oahe. However, there's more to the story, and let's go back to North Dakota. All right, well, how about that? And yes, there is more to the story, because the story continues like this. After the South Dakota people came over here and did their dirty deed and dug him up and planted him back over there, people over here said, whoa, wait a minute, not so fast. You didn't get Sitting Bull. You got probably a bunch of horse bones, or at the very most, some anonymous pioneer guy that just happened to be buried here. So the story lives on. Is Sitting Bull actually here in Fort Yates, or is he over in South Dakota? I guess history is not going to find that out. But anyway, Fort Yates, North Dakota, claims him to this very day, as does South Dakota. And that's our first stop in North Dakota, so let's go see what else we can find on the way along the Missouri River and points west. And now for our next stop, right here on a hillside where it seems there's nothing around but rolling hills, trees, Missouri River out there, windmills over here, and flags of the US, Canada, and Mexico. We have nothing other than, let's go take a look at it. It's the Scientific Center of North America. That's right. On this point right here is the center point of North America, and keep in mind that North America consists of Canada, the US, and Mexico, which is technically in North America. But of course, there is a story to this. So back in 1931, there was a worker with the US Geodetic Survey who took a cardboard cutout. I'm trying to get out of the wind here. Who took a cardboard cutout of North America, and he balanced he balanced it on a pencil so that it would just balance just correctly on the point of the pencil, and so that's what he determined the geographic center of North America to be. That turned out to be way up north in Rugby, or just south of Rugby, North Dakota, and so that was called the geographic center of North America. Well, of course, the people in the town of Rugby were delighted, and so they changed all their information and so that they could be called the geographic center of Rugby. Well, fast forward, there was a guy, Bill Bender, in the town of Robinson, which is south of Rugby. And he said, hey, wait a minute. The guy didn't say that Rugby was the center, but he said it was south of Rugby. So he claimed that he did some measurements and all that. And lo and behold, the geographic center of North America just happened to be just a few steps away from his bar in Robinson, North Dakota. So there was back and forth going on between those two towns, and eventually they came to a peace. But in 2018, there was a professor from the State University of New York who did some actually official calculations. And he said, no. The actual center of North America, geographically speaking, is right here on this point, which just happens to be, and here's a serendipity about this, just happens to be just north of the town of Center, North Dakota. And Center, North Dakota was named that simply because it was the center of the county. So, of course, now the people in Center are saying, yeah, this is great. So, this right here, as far as mathematical and algorithmic calculations go, is the exact center of North America, just right north of Center, North Dakota. How about that? And it's all here on a open hillside overlooking the Missouri River Valley. Missouri River being right over there. And of course, there just happens to be a big rock here too. All right, so that's our second stop, right? North Dakota. Let's go take a look and let's go visit Sue. Yeah, let's go visit Sue in Salem. All right, we're here. We're here to see Sue. Sue from New Salem. Meet Salem Sue, the world's largest Holstein cow. And it's right here in North Dakota. So Sue is 38 feet tall. She's 50 feet long, weighs 6 tons. She's built in 1974 for a cost of $40,000. And you probably guessed it that she commemorates the dairy farming here in the area. But there is a story about how it came to be. So back in the 1800s, there was a farmer who was doing his thing, plowing the ground, and then there were a couple Sioux Indians that came up, were watching him, and then the younger Sioux Indian was looking at the plowed ground, the clods of grass being turned over, and he picked one up and turned it over, and he said, "Now, the grass is right side up." And so the farmer looked at it and said, "Yeah, you know what? This is probably a better place for it grazing than it is for farming." So he started grazing cows, and the rest is history. And so Salem Sue, in all her glory, commemorates the dairy farming history of this area of North Dakota. Here in New Salem, North Dakota, just right off Interstate 94, right down in there. And next we're going to be heading west, looking at something that's quite enchanted. Some enchanted evening. Let's go take a look. Okay, ready for our next North Dakota stop? The Enchanted Highway, going down to Regent. And the first stop on the Enchanted Highway is Geese in Flight. Look at that. So what's the Enchanted Highway all about? So there's a guy named Gary Greer whose hometown was Regent, North Dakota, about 25 miles down that way. And after being away for about 20 years, he came back to Regent to teach school, and he noticed that the town was pretty much down and out and on its way out. So he was trying to think, what can I do to help this town? And so he came up with this idea that, hey, maybe if I put a bunch of sculptures along the road, it'll be enough of a curiosity that it will attract people to come down the road and into Regent. So he got to working. He didn't know how to weld. These are all metal sculptures. He got to working and started making all these sculptures. The first of which is actually closer to the town. We'll see that shortly. But this one was his most ambitious, Geese in Flight, which represents geese flying over the North Dakota prairie. And it was made from old oil wells, barrels and piping, I think 5 miles worth. And the curious thing about this one too is that it's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as being the largest metal sculpture in the world, at about 110 feet tall, about 150 feet wide, and weighing just about 78 tons. So he really had quite a job there. And so I have these metal sculptures along the Enchanted Highway. Done anything to help the town of Regent? To pull people down the road? Well, let's go learn together and see on the Enchanted Highway. All right, let's take a look at our next stop along the Enchanted Highway. And this one is called Deer Crossing. Can you see that yet? I can't. So Deer Crossing symbolizes a buck and a doe. The buck stands at 75 feet and the doe stands in at 50 feet. Interesting story about this one is that when the guy made it, he had to drive it through town to get it down here, and so he thought all was good. You know, he had measured the road to make sure it was wide enough and all that. And then, lo and behold, he had forgotten to take account of the street lights. So he got around the first few street lights. Then he got to a pair of street lights that were just right across from each other on the road. And so what he had to do is, eventually, he had to cut off the antlers and cut off the leg on this one, just so he can get it through town and down here. And then once he got it into place, he re-welded everything right here on site. So deer crossing, representing the abundant deer that go through this area. And not only is this a sculpture of deer, there's also over here a maze that you can go through. Again, all welded. Oh, and the other thing too about these sculptures, not only this one, but the one we just saw. This is all used from scrap metal, and what Gary had to do in order to get them all flat, he had to run them over on his tractor so they can flatten them out in the field and then get to welding them. So Enchanted deer crossing on the Enchanted Highway. And now, let's go see what else awaits for us further down the line. All right, ready for our next one? Here's something that no farmer wants to find. And that's grasshoppers in the field. So this represents grasshoppers doing their thing among the wheat fields. And this grasshopper in particular is 60 feet long, 40 feet tall, and it's, guess what? It's the world's largest grasshopper. The interesting thing about the wheat is that Gary made these stalks to maybe blow in the wind, but he didn't know better, and he realized that, wait a minute, metal after so many times of blowing and bending is going to break. So he just decided to leave them the way they are, which then he says represents, well, that's what grasshoppers do, right? They eat the things and then they break. So grasshoppers in the field. "60 feet long and 40 feet high." And one can only wonder what our next stop's going to be along the Enchanted Highway. A lot of people don't think about this, about North Dakota, and especially when you're driving this Enchanted Highway, that there's a lot of fishing opportunities in North Dakota, especially along the Missouri River, but also in the various lakes and streams that are interspersed throughout the state. But this one here on the Enchanted Highway is called Fisherman's Dream. And this actually turns out to be not only the most intricate, but it was most difficult to build, and it's also turned out to be the most popular of the sculptures along the Enchanted Highway. Look at this. This water line is 70 feet above the ground, and look at the fisherman guy just doing his thing there. And is that a trout? Getting the poor dragonfly. But all these fish represent fish that naturally settle here in North Dakota. Another story about this one is that when Gary was finishing up on the fish, he had them all in the barn, and then it rained, and it was the barn was leaking unbeknownst to him, and so it rusted all the fish. So he had to redo them all. And then the other part of the story is that when he finally got this all out here to assemble it on site, he then caused a grass fire, to wit, they then called it the largest fish fry. So Fisherman's Dream, and another stop along the Enchanted Highway. It's actually pretty nice, huh? All right, you'll find a lot of these birds here in North Dakota, even along the Enchanted Highway here, but you certainly won't find 45, 30, or 15-foot ones running around. So this is called Pheasants on the Prairie. And the rooster, yes, the male pheasant is called a rooster, is 45 feet tall and weighs 70 tons. Wow. 70 tons, that's a lot. This is the hen, and she is 30 feet tall. And then the three chicks here are 15 feet tall each. I've actually seen quite a few pheasants along the roads here driving through North and South Dakota. But they're actually pretty, and they do kind of look like this, but not that big. And but anyway, pheasants on the prairie, on the Enchanted Highway, and we're getting closer and closer to Regent. And you know what? I think Gary Greer really did have a good idea when he said, I wonder if I could put something along the road to draw people to our dying town. So far it's working. You can even ask these people here. Okay, onward down the Enchanted Highway. Okay, one of the simpler sculptures, and also the second one that was done with the help of townspeople, and actually kind of one of the last ones done with the help of the townspeople, is this sculpture of Teddy Roosevelt before he was president. And why Teddy Roosevelt? Well, he goes on to say that Teddy Roosevelt spent quite a bit of time here in North Dakota roughing it, especially in the period of time after he lost his wife and mother, both on the same day. And so Roosevelt spent some time on ranches out here just west and northwest of here, over in the grasslands. And so Gary thought it'd be a fitting tribute to Teddy Roosevelt to put him in sculpture. It was made out of scrap metal from North Dakota wells, and again, like I said, it was the second one built, and actually also the last one that had any substantial help from the townspeople. All the rest of the sculptures were pretty much Gary on his own. So Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Rider, is another stop on the Enchanted Highway. Well, let's continue on. Look, they got a following. All right, the first sculpture completed along the Enchanted Highway, and also the one that was helped most by the townspeople, the Tin Farm Family. These were all made out of scrap metal and telephone poles. And Mom here stands 44 feet tall, and if you can look and see closely, that's barbed wire for her hair. This being the first, you can also tell by comparing it with the others, especially maybe with the fisherman one, that this is the simplest of all of them, and they got succeedingly more complicated and detailed as they went along. But this is the first one, the Tin Farm family, and it's also the closest one to town. And speaking of which, we might as well go drive through town there. I understand there's also a brand new one built just this year, just outside, what else? The Enchanted Castle. What's the Enchanted Castle? Well, I'll tell you about that when we get there. And so here we come to our last stop on the Enchanted Highway, and all fitting too because rain's coming in. This is St. Albert and the Dragon. St. Albert stands 41 feet tall, and the Dragon is 100 feet long, and future plans for the Dragon are to have him belching fire out every hour. Now it's also fitting here that the St. Albert and the Dragon are right here at the Enchanted Castle. The Enchanted Castle is part of the old school which Gary went to, and so he bought it when it closed and has turned it into a hotel and bar and restaurant, and then he's also kept part of the old school the same way that it was, the gymnasium and all that. So has all of this brought fame and fortune to Regent, North Dakota? Well, some say yes, some say not so much, but in any way, shape, and form, they certainly do bring the people down the Enchanted Highway to Regent, North Dakota. And if you're ever thinking of getting out this way, it's not too far east, maybe about 40 minutes east of Dickinson, North Dakota, maybe an hour or so west of Bismarck. It's on I-94, so it's easy to get to. The rooms are 99 bucks a night. I don't know how much the steak dinners are, but yeah, Regent, North Dakota, just 25 miles south of Interstate 94 between Dickinson and Bismarck, North Dakota. Come on down and see it. By the way, if you want to hear more about Enchanted Trail, just go, I put a link down in the description too, but just go to talkingtrail.com/Enchanted Highway. talkingtrail.com/Enchanted Highway. And now, where are we going to go to in North Dakota? I don't know. Let's go out and see some grass, I guess. Well, thanks for coming along in this journey through North Dakota. It was short, but it was sweet. And if you liked it, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and also click that bell so that you get all the notifications to get the next episode coming up to you. And next time, we're going to do something really different. I bet you don't even expect this. So what could it be? Stay tuned. Well, here's a little bonus, North Dakota. I didn't expect to stop here, but I'm glad that I did. This is the Little Missouri River National Grasslands. Let's just start over here. Look at this. It's miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of nothing and nobody around. And the great thing about it is you can disperse camp anywhere on the grasslands. It is pretty nice. Look at that. It's the grasslands are located in western North Dakota, along the Badlands of North Dakota, and they're really easy to get to. Interstate 94 intersects the grasslands. The closest towns would be Dickinson and Williston in North Dakota. But they're really easy to get to. Well, maybe this spot where I am right now, not so much a road. As you can see, kind of followed a faint 2-track. But through a lot of the grasslands here, there's some very nice and smooth dirt roads. You can see that one right there that I came off of. So if you got a little 2-wheel drive car, you can make it through most of them. So if you get out this way to this part of the country, or even if you've never thought that you want to get out to this way, it's worth a stop. I mean, North Dakota is really pretty. Surprises me once again. I'll be back. Maybe we'll cross paths too. Right. Guess what? We're driving north. On the great wide north, that's right.